Sitting in the glow of a television sits William Adams. His near violet eyes stare blankly at the screen without real interest of what's happening on it. In the glow of the screen, his tan chest shows scars from fights, and scars on his face mark absurd self-harm. William is bored with everything. Emotions are but fleeting sensations that quickly pass. In truth, William doesn't even love his family, let alone himself. A scar line across his nose and cheeks made for thinking he could look like the teacher from Naruto. Beneath his right eye is a single mole. Whatever act he finds interesting, William follows through, whether picking a fight or cutting open his face. He switches to the news. Another murder. A girl kills her friends in revenge for the burning of her face by accident. William's black, curly hair falls in his face, causing him to brush it out of the way again. How boring. More sob stories about other deaths of recent. Sighing, he slouches and scratches his neck. For a second, a thought crosses his mind that interests him. If killing someone got you on the news, then maybe it would be more interesting than watching it on the screen. Before he can think it over, he was interrupted by his mother walking into the TV room. "Hey, Ma," William says in his monotone voice. "Hi, Will," she replies, passing him a Snickers before walking into the other room and taking her black hair from its bun. "Can you go get milk from the convenience store, Will? I forgot to get some while I was out." Unwrapping the Snickers and taking a bite, he grunts, getting up and strolling to the front door. Again his mother passes him on her way to change out of her work attire. She passes him a 5 and kisses his cheek before heading upstairs. "Put on a shirt or something, Will," her voice chides as she turns a corner. Again William grunts and grabs his zip-up jacket, the absurdly high turtleneck on it covering his chin. Outside, it's still lit with the sun's glow as it sets, and a car pulls up as William ties his shoes and steps out. "Hey, Dad," William calls out when his father steps out from the car, smiling at the boy as he walks over. "Hey there, Willie," his dad says, ruffling his hair. "Getting something for your mom?" "Yeah, she forgot to buy milk." William takes a bite of his Snickers bar. "Alright, just don't get into any more fights." And with that, his father walked in, leaving William to roll his eyes and trudge down the road. Left to his thoughts, he mulls over the thought of murder. Every outcome for it seems interesting, just like in the movies. Always on the edge, looking for places to hide, new targets to kill. For a moment, William smiled before the emotion he felt passed. It was decided. William walked the rest of the way to the store, pondering who would be his target and how he'd go about it. Inside, he grabbed the milk, violet eyes catching a glimpse of pliers and some pocket knives a few shelves over. Before he knew it, he had both the pliers and the knife in his hand. Slipping the pliers and knife in his pocket, he paid for the milk and walked out of the store. His first victims, William decided, would be his parents. That would make a good news story. The ironic part was that his father was a dentist. Twirling the pliers, William thought over the teeth he'd pull from his parents' mouths. This should give him a thrill, a little more emotion that his usual boring life supplied. A man passing him on the road caught William's attention. As he passed, William stopped, turned, and followed him. Pulling out the knife, he took a few quick steps to catch up with the man and stabbed him in the back. The man yelled, and quickly William covered his mouth with his free hand, forcing his head back to lean on his shoulder as he continued to stab him and twist his new blade. Fighting to get free, the man continued to scream and try and pull away. Bored with just stabbing the man, William slit his throat and forced the gurgling man to the ground. A feeling of excitement rushed through him as William began to pull out the man's teeth. The man bled out before he had finished pulling out his teeth. The feeling of excitement went away, and William stood up, jacket covered in blood. Pocketing the man's teeth, William scratched his neck, wondering what else he could do. Pressing the tip of his knife into his lips, William slid the slick blade down, cutting his lip open in a clean line. There. Now he had a mark to remember his first murder. William moved off towards home again, bored and waiting for the pain of cutting his face to go away. The walk home held nothing more of interest. Blood dripped from his face to the ground while William walked. At home the lights were off. His parents must be asleep. Pulling out his knife and pliers, he opened the door and stepped inside the house. Head beginning to buzz with excitement, William smiled slightly. Up the stairs he walked to the first door on his right. Before going inside, he had a quick walk to his room to grab some rope he used for hiking. Once inside his parents' room, he quickly tied his sleeping parents to the bed. They woke up groggily as he was finishing. William crawled onto the bed and took his mother's hand. "William, what are—" She cut off as she screamed. William used his pliers to pry off her fingernails. Thrashing around, William held tightly onto her hand, continuing to pull off her nails. His father tried grabbing him, but his arm wasn't long enough to. Watching with horror, he stared as his son finished on his mother's hand and started on the other. When it was over, his mother was sobbing and begging him to let them go. William's face remained blank. Untying her from the bed, he tried to get her onto the ground. She thrashed about trying to break free, and after a few punches, she was on the ground, and William sat on her legs. A clean slice down her chest to her stomach. He peeled back the skin. Her eyes rolled back in her head as she screamed. Pliers out, William began to pry at her rib cage, a smile on his face as he broke off her ribs and pulled them out. Done with this, he removed the majority of her teeth before she bled out. Switching his gaze to his terrified father, who had been begging for him to stop, William crawled onto the bed, giving a sharp punch to his father's jaw. When he fought back, he forced open his father's mouth and began pulling teeth. The agonizing activity continued until his father's teeth were gone and blood poured from his mouth. Again, William slid open his stomach and began pulling organs out, examining them before tossing them over his shoulder. Laying still on the bed, his father stared blankly at the ceiling. Making 2 cuts on his mouth, William marked his murders before going downstairs to find the mask he had planned to use for Halloween. The plain gray mask stared up at him. Puncturing it, he made 2 ovals for eye holes, and then made a straight line for the mouth. A bloody handprint was on the face, but of course he didn't care. Strapping the mask on, he breathed out, the previous emotions gone. Walking at the back, he trudged out into the suburbs and away from the nearing police sirens. William disappeared into a dark alleyway, wondering what the news report would be and how he should make the next one. Can you get milk? Can you... Oh God. Can you